Hi everyone. Welcome to another Question, Answers, and Why na lecture natin specifically for this topic, for this subject on crop protection. So without further ado, let's start off. Question number one says, for annual crops, the maximum number of nematode parasites can be recovered during, so kailan daw natin marirecover yung maximum number of nematodes? Is it on this seedling stage of the plant? It's letter A. Flowering stage, vegetable or vegetative stage, or near harvest stage. So we need to understand two concepts sa question na to before we can answer it. The first one is we need to understand what is a nematode. Nematode, fundamentally speaking, they are microscopic worms. So these microscopic worms, they can cause significant damage to a plant. And kailangan nating maintindihan yung kanilang life cycle and population dynamics for effective crop protection. The other term that we need to understand is annual crops. What are annual crops basically? These are plants that complete their life cycle. So ibig sabihin yan, from germination up until mag-produce sila ng seeds within 1 year. After that, they die. Now, don't get confused, okay, with the word annual. Hindi po porket sinabi nating annual, 1 year bago mamatay yung halaman. But rather, it is within 1 year na kukumpleto ng halaman yung kanyang life cycle. So most of our agricultural crops like corn, like rice, vegetables, they are annual crops because they can complete their life cycle within 1 year. Now, these nematodes now, they will feed on your annual crops. Often, ang inaatake nila is yung roots nung crop mo, and they would reduce yung ability ng halaman mo to take up water and nutrients. So if your annual crop cannot take in water and nutrients effectively, then magpapakita na yung symptom kung saan sila ay nasisira. So, let's talk about the nematode population dynamics. Ang nematode, they tend to build up over time. So that means, habang tumatagal yung pagkabuhay ng halaman, dumadami rin ng dumadami ang nematode. So they will start infesting your plant early, and then as the plants grow, the nematodes will produce and produce and produce. So by the time the plants are near harvest, kung saan pinaka-mature na sila, kung saan pakumpleto na nila yung kanilang life stage, the nematode population now had an ample time para ma-maximize or reach yung peak ng kanilang population. So that's a very important concept that you need to understand here. Nematodes accumulate over time. Nematodes, they reproduce yung numbers nila, yung population nila over time. So the longer na yung halaman mo ay nasa ground, nasa soil, the more nematodes there will be. So given that, the question now states, saan yung stage kung saan na ma-maximize nung nematode yung kanyang population? So if they grow over time with the plant, na ma-maximize niya yung kanyang population or the population is at its peak during the near harvest stage. So habang tumatagal yung halaman, mas dumadami yung nematode, and at near harvest stage, doon yung peak ng kanyang population. Now, seedling stage is not the correct answer. Why? Well, because sa seedling stage, this is only an early stage of the plant. So nagsisimula pa lang dito yung population ng nematode mo. So there hasn't been enough time for the numbers of the nematode para mag-grow. Flowering stage is, yep, increasing na siya kasi medyo patapos na yung stage ng yung life stage ng halaman at flowering stage. But still, hindi pa niya nahihit yung kanyang maximum population dito. Why? Kasi may natitira pa siyang growing season for further reproduction. Vegetative stage or vegetable stage ay hindi rin kasama because this stage is still early in the plant's growth cycle than the near harvest stage. So given that reasoning, we are left with the correct answer, which is near harvest stage. Question number 2. Fungal pathogens are often isolated using this technique. Is it serial dilution, serial dilution, tissue planting, spore trapping, or Behrman funnel? Two concepts here again. We are talking about an isolation technique. An isolation technique for what type of pathogen? For fungal pathogen. Okay? Now, if you remember our discussion on Koch's postulate, it is important for us, remember, to isolate pathogens para ma-incorporate natin yung sakit na yun dun sa specific pathogen na nagko-cause nung sakit. So that's a method. The Koch's postulate is basically a method for us to determining whether a specific pathogen causes the disease. And isolation is one of the stages or one of the methods that we are doing to isolate, to know kung yung pathogen na to is actually the one causing the disease. Now, there are several isolation techniques. There are several isolation techniques for the types of the pathogen that we have. So for bacteria, nematode, virus, and fungi. So isa-isahin natin yung mga isolation techniques na ipinakita sa choices. Number one would be serial dilution. So serial dilution is a technique to isolate yung plant pathogen by quantifying either bacteria. Okay, so for bacteria to. But minsan, ginagamit rin naman siya for fungi isolation. So ano ba yung process na to? How does it work? So ang gagawin dyan, it involves diluting a sample. So itong sample na to, may liquid ka and then dyan na rin yung disease, yung pathogen ng halaman. And then we will dilute it several times. So this sample with the pathogen will be moved into a specific test tube. Let's name it test tube 1. And then lalagyan ng tubig for dilution. And then yung na-dilute dito, ililipat to another test tube and then lalagyan ulit ng tubig for another dilution and then uulitin lamang yon. Now, for each specific dilution, kukuha ngayon sila ng sample and spread it out into a Petri dish kung saan dito na nila bibilangin kung ilan yung colonies ng pathogen na nagpakita based doon sa ating test sample. So that's serial dilution. So again, the question is asking for an isolation technique for fungi. Now, nasabi ko dito na ang serial dilution natin is for bacteria and for some fungi. Rarely the case fungi. Mostly ginagamit siya for bacteria, but then sometimes ginagamit rin siya for fungi. So, possible na letter A, this one, serial dilution, is the correct answer, right? So, let's leave that behind because there is a possibility that serial dilution is the correct answer. The second choice that I would like to present to you is the spore trapping. So what is spore trapping? Primarily, ito ay method to capture airborne fungal spores using a device called your spore traps. In this case, ang brand ng spore trap natin is Spornado. I think this is developed in Canada. And anyways, ang fungi, okay, so fungi ay may spores and yung spores na yan, sobrang liliit na yan. So it's like, para siyang dust particles kumbaga, and sometimes these spores are present in your air. So ang ginagawa ng spore trapping is to actually trap spores in your in the air. So ilalagay mo itong spore trap na to sa field and yung umiikot na air doon sa field, basically mangongolekta siya and in theory, makakakolek ngayon tayo ng spores that we can study. Now the question is spore trapping an isolation technique for infected plants? It's not the case. Why? Spore trapping is useful only for monitoring yung population ng fungal spore na nasa environment. But it is not for isolating fungi directly from infected plants. So spore trapping, kinukuha lang natin kung ano ba yung population ng spore na nasa environment. Pero we are not getting the specific fungi that infected your plant. So spore trapping now is not an isolation technique, but rather a collection technique only. It's collection and monitoring technique. So spore trapping is not your correct answer. We now move to one of the choices sa question natin, which is called Behrman funnel. Ano naman ang Behrman funnel? It is an isolation technique. Yes. Pero it is used to isolate what pathogen? Nematodes. Okay? So, ang Behrman funnel is used to isolate nematodes and not fungi. So, balikan natin. How does this process start? Well, it involves a funnel kung saan dito sa funnel na to, lalagyan mo siya ng tatakpan mo basically yung dulo ng funnel with a rubber tubing and a clamp, and then pupunuin mo ng tubig yung funnel na yan. Tapos maglalagay ka ng screen and gauze sa taas or tissue, and then doon mo ilalagay yung sample, yung soil sample mo na sa tingin mo mayroong nematode. So the idea here is you will leave this within 24 hours. So you will leave this sample for 24 hours. And the idea is yung nematode na nasa soil, if your soil is infected by nematodes, will move to the water because nematodes, generally speaking, are attracted sa tubig. So pupunta yung nematodes mo dyan sa tubig na yan. Now after 24 hours, what do? Aalisin mo yung clamp, you will collect the water sample here below, and then yan yung itetest mo ngayon. Itetest mo ngayon kung present ba yung nematode doon sa sample mo or not. Okay? So that's Behrman funnel. It is an isolation technique, yes, but it is not used for fungi, but rather for nematodes. Therefore, Behrman funnel is not the correct answer. So far, we only have one correct answer, yung ating serial dilution. Now let's move on to the last choice that we have in the question, which is tissue planting. Now, tissue planting, this method involves, kukuha ka ng piece of infected plant tissue, tapos ilalagay mo siya into a nutrient medium, more than likely an agar, sa petri dish, and then you will now allow the pathogen present in the tissue of the diseased plant to grow. So, ang tissue planting is an isolation technique, yes, and mostly ginagamit siya to isolate fungi. Okay? So, tissue planting is directly used to isolate the fungi in an infected plant material, making it a straightforward, kumbaga, straightforward, diretso na way on how to cultivate your fungi that are causing the infection. So, tissue planting is mostly used for fungi. It's an isolation technique that is mostly used for fungi. So itong tissue planting natin is mostly used for fungi, whereas yung serial dilution na discuss natin kanina is mainly used for bacteria but can be used for fungi as well. So alin yung mas tamang sagot? Right? So given that fact, since tissue planting is mostly used for fungi and yung serial dilution is ginagamit lang paminsan-minsan sa fungi, ang tamang sagot now is letter B, tissue planting. Okay? We now move to question number 3. In the absence of the plants in the field, fungal pathogens will not survive. So your pathogens daw, your fungal pathogens specifically, will not survive in a plant debris, soil, seeds, or leaves that fell out from plants. So the question is asking us, kung walang halaman sa field, so if there are no plants on your field, yung fungal pathogen mo ay hindi mag-survive saan? Hindi siya mag-survive sa plant debris, sa soil, sa seed, or sa leaves that fell out from plants. We need to understand first that fungal pathogens na nag-i-infect sa ating halaman, they have adapted to survive in environments that are closely associated with their host plants. That means, kapag may halaman doon sa field mo, more than likely nagpo-proliferate yung population ng ating fungi. Why? Because fungi can basically live on anything that is living. So it can live on your plant debris, it can live on your seeds, and it can live on fallen leaves from your plant na itinanim mo, which provide the necessary nutrient and conditions for the fungi's survival. Now, given that na ang fungi pala ay mas nabubuhay kapag may buhay na halaman doon sa field mo, let's say, inalis natin yung halaman. So fungal pathogens now cannot survive in the soil alone. Although there are some fungal pathogen that can persist, kumbaga nananatili sila sa soil, kung wala silang makain dyan sa soil na yan, they will become dormant. And many fungal pathogen, they cannot survive in the soil for a long period of time without any plant material to sustain them. So soil alone do not provide nutrients doon sa ating fungal pathogen, and what happens is your fungal pathogen will die, or for some, they will become dormant. So the correct answer here is in the absence of plants in the field. Kasi yun yung condition. Inalis natin yung halaman doon sa field, your fungal pathogen will not survive in soil alone. They can survive kapag may plant debris doon, like leaves that fell out from your plants. They can survive kapag may seeds doon sa soil mo. But if you remove all of this, basically soil lang yung matitira, your fungal pathogen will not survive in soil alone. Let's move with question number 4. Rye may induce this kind of affliction. Is that a respiratory diseases, skin rashes, St. Anthony's fire, or tetanus? Now, the correct answer here is basically letter C, St. Anthony's fire, because our rye here is related to our ergot rye, right? Now, if I think I have discussed this in one of our lectures about pathogen, basically yung development ng plant pathology, I suppose, or history ng plant pathology, rye is related to ergot rye. And St. Anthony's fire, yan yung tamang sagot because St. Anthony's fire is also called your ergotism. So it is a condition that is caused by it is a human condition. So sakit siya ng tao na ang pinaka-main cause niya is by consuming grains or rye na na-infect ng tinatawag nating fungi, na-infect ng fungi which we call as Claviceps purpurea. Diba? Claviceps purpurea. So kapag yung rye mo is na-infect ng fungi na Claviceps purpurea, tapos yung tao, kinain niya yung rye na yon, nagkakaroon ng sakit yung tao na yon. How? So here is how it works. So yung ergot fungus natin, yung Claviceps purpurea natin, it will infect yung rye. Okay? And yung fungi na to will produce some form of alkaloids na kapag kinain ng tao, nagkakos siya ng ergotism. So ano yung symptoms ng ergotism or St. Anthony's fire? It can cause severe vasoconstriction. Ibig sabihin, yung blood vessels sa katawan ng tao nagko-constrict. So they are being narrowed down. Kumikipot sila. Ngayon, dahil extreme yung vasoconstriction na to, it would cause to certain symptoms like gangrene, kung saan namamatay yung tissue kasi nga hindi maayos, dahil nag-constrict yung blood vessel, hindi maayos yung blood flow sa katawan. So nagko-cause ng gangrene, which is namamatay yung mga tissues doon sa katawan ng tao. At the same time, it also causes hallucination, convulsions, and this symptom is very important, and a burning sensation on the leaves. A burning sensation on the leaves. That is why it is also called St. Anthony's fire. Parang nasusunog, may pakiramdam na nasusunog yung ating limbs or yung ating paa, kaya siya tinawag as St. Anthony's fire. Now, in the Middle Ages, nagkaroon ng outbreak ng ergotism sa Europe kasi basically rye is a staple food back then. So, nung na-infect yung kanilang rye, yung kanilang grain ng Claviceps purpurea, nagkaroon daw ng outbreak of ergotism. So the condition was named Saint Anthony pala, by the way, because during this time, yung mga monks of the order of Saint Anthony, they are the ones who are treating this kind of affliction or this kind of disease. Now so the correct answer is Saint Anthony's fire. Again, sabi natin kanina, Saint Anthony's fire do not cause any respiratory diseases. 'Di ba? Doon sa mga symptoms that we've discussed earlier, walang respiratory diseases dyan. Although, for some people na allergic sa pollen ng rye, they might experience some respiratory symptoms, but not all who are infected by ergotism will experience respiratory disease. Skin rashes, although may burning sensation tayong nakita doon, it is worse than that. It is worse than your skin rash. Okay? So while some individuals, magkakaroon sila ng allergic reaction sa ating rye, it is not directly related to the consumption of rye that is infected by your Claviceps purpurea. How about tetanus? Tetanus is not caused by Claviceps purpurea, okay? It is caused by a bacteria called Clostridium tetani, which is found in soil and can enter the body through wounds. So it is unrelated, completely unrelated sa ergotism. The correct answer is Saint Anthony's fire. Last question. Some fungal pathogens form this structure to obtain nutrient from the host. Do we call that as germ tube, sporling, infection hypha or hyphae, or Haustorium? So the question is asking that for some fungal pathogens, nagke-create daw sila ng structure para maka-obtain ng nutrients sa kanilang halaman. Anong tawag doon sa structure na yon that gets nutrients out of your plants? So we need to understand the concept first na nandito sa mga choices, the different concepts na nandito sa mga choices. Magsimula tayo sa sporling. Ano ba ang sporling? Well, kung sa plant comes from seeds, okay? And for plants, they come from seeds. Ang fungi naman, they come from spores. So yun yung parang pinaka-seed ng isang fungi. Now kapag tumubo yung seed, you now create a seedling, which is a young plant. Ngayon ang spores, kapag tumubo yan, initially a young fungi, let's say, ang tawag mo dyan, sporling. So sporling is not a structure. Okay? So sporling is not a structure but rather a developmental stage ng isang fungal pathogen. So sporling now is not your correct answer. So this is therefore eliminated. Now, let's go on with the other concepts. Germ tube, magsimula tayo doon. Ngayon, yung spore natin or yung seed ng fungi, the spore, initially, tutubo yan and yung tawag doon sa initial outgrowth niya, is called a germ tube. Okay. Ito yung first step sa development stages ng fungal hypha. So sa germ tube na to, dyan manggagaling yung ating hyphae. Okay? Now, what is the hyphae? Yung hyphae ng fungi na nag-infect sa halaman, yung hyphae na yun yung structure that goes inside your plant. So it penetrates, the hyphae, this one, will penetrate your plant. So baka makapaisip kayo, sir, kung if the hyphae will penetrate the plant, then it is logical na sila rin siguro yung structure that absorbs the nutrients within the plant. Not necessarily. Because yung fungal hyphae mo, ang gagawin lang niya, papasok lang siya doon sa halaman, but not necessarily get the nutrient from the plants. We have another structure which we call as haustorium. So kapag yung fungal hyphae mo nakapenetrate na siya doon sa halaman, magre-release siya or mag-grow siya ng another set of structure which is called your haustorium, and yun yung magpe-penetrate doon sa plant cell. So remember, your hypha, your fungal hyphae will penetrate your plant. But there's another structure that will penetrate your plant cell. So this is a specialized structure that will penetrate now the cells of your plant. So kapag na-penetrate na niya yung cell ng halaman niya, kumbaga yung fungi mo dumedede na ng nutrient doon sa halaman. So nag-a-absorb na siya ng nutrient doon sa halaman ng paunti-unti. And it will not cause the plant, it will not allow the plant to die immediately. Okay? So paunti-unti, dahan-dahan, kinukuha niya yung nutrient doon sa halaman. That is the very reason kung bakit tumatagal yung fungi doon sa halaman. Kasi ang ginagawa ng fungi, hindi niya pinapatay agad yung halaman. But rather, the fungi is slowly getting nutrients from the plant, slowly sucking yung nutrients from the plant para yung fungi mo, it will thrive for a long time. Kasi isipin nyo na lang kung pinapatay niya agad yung halaman niya. Pag pinatay niya agad yung halaman niya, hindi na siya mabubuhay. The fungi will not live long. But rather, paunti-unti, using this specialized structure called haustorium, paunti-unti, dumedede, kumbaga, yung ating fungi doon sa plant cell ng halaman getting its nutrients. So therefore, given that explanation, the correct answer now is haustorium. Sporling, again, hindi yan structure, but rather a developmental stage. Germ tube, dyan yung unang tubo ng spores will create your germ tube that will now create your infection hypha or hyphae. Your hyphae will penetrate your plant, it will penetrate the plant, but it will not necessarily consume or absorb nutrients from the plant. There is another structure called your haustorium that would penetrate your plant cell or your tissues na sila na mismo yung sila na yung mismong nagko-consume or nag-absorb ng nutrient doon sa ating halaman.